Story 1. The voice coming from my basement wasn't my brother's. You know how basements always smell like a lie? Like damp concrete and old laundry and something sweet that shouldn't be there. Like rotting fruit or a forgotten Christmas candle. Ours was like that. But after that night, I can't even walk past the door without tasting iron. My brother, Danny, died 3 years ago last June. Car accident. A semi ran a red light on Route 9. I was the one who had to identify him. They kept asking if I was sure, and I kept saying yes because who else would have that small scar above his left eyebrow from when he fell off his bike at 12? Who else would wear 2 different socks, one gray, one blue, on a Tuesday? I didn't cry at the funeral. That's the part one hate admitting. I just stood there in my stiff black dress and thought, the basement door is unlocked, which is insane. But grief does that. It unhooks your brain from the ceiling and lets it float around knocking into things. Anyway, the voice. It started on a Thursday. I was home alone. Our parents had gone to a grief support group they'd been attending for 2 years, even though Danny was gone, because my mom said you don't just stop. I was 23, back from college for the summer because I couldn't afford my apartment and therapy at the same time, and my dad said the spare room was always mine. The basement was directly under that spare room. I was scrolling my phone around 11 p.m. when I heard it. Not a bang, not a scratch, a voice, quiet, muffled, like someone talking with a hand over their mouth or through a thick winter scarf. I froze with my thumb hovering over a meme I don't remember. Let me out. I dropped the phone. It hit the hardwood floor and the screen cracked. Little spiderweb in the top left corner. But I wasn't looking at that. I was looking at the floor vent near my bed, the one that connected to the old heating ducts. The voice came up from there. I told myself it was the pipes. Old house, right? Built in 1978. The heating system groaned and sighed like an old man getting out of a chair. But pipes don't say please. And this voice said please. 10 seconds later. Softer that time. Please, Sarah. It's cold. My name. My actual name. My hands started shaking. Not the little tremor from too much caffeine. The full body shake you get when you're standing at the edge of a cliff and someone's behind you. Because I knew that voice. I had heard it call my name 1,000 times, from the back seat of our mom's minivan, from the other end of the hallway at 2 a.m. when I was crying over a boy who didn't text back, from the driveway as he left for work the last morning of his life. It was Danny. I should have run. I should have grabbed my keys, my wallet, my stupid cracked phone, and driven to a gas station and sat under the fluorescent lights until the sun came up. But you don't think straight when you hear your dead brother's voice. You think, what if? You think maybe there's been a mistake. You think, please, please, please let this be real. So I went to the basement door. It's at the end of the hallway, behind the vacuum cleaner and a stack of Christmas decorations my mom hasn't touched since 2021. The wood is warped. The knob is old brass that turns with a grinding sound. I stood there for a full minute with my palm pressed flat against the door, feeling the cold seep through. Danny? I said. Silence. Then, Sarah. Oh God. You came. His voice cracked on the last word, and that's what got me, the crack. Because Danny never cried. Not when our dog ran away. Not when he broke his arm skateboarding. Not even when he found out our dad had cancer. He beat it, by the way, 5 years ago. The only time I saw him cry was when he was 7 and our goldfish died. And even then he wiped his face fast and said, I'm not sad. I'm just mad at the water. But this voice was crying, sobbing, almost wet and ugly and desperate. I'm down here, he said. They put me down here and I can't get out. The door locks from the outside. I've been banging. I've been screaming. Why can't you hear me? I said something stupid. I said, you're dead, Danny. He laughed. That same laugh he had when he was being sarcastic. A short, breathy thing that always made me want to punch his arm. That's what they want you to think. The car wasn't an accident, Sarah. Someone wanted me gone. And when I didn't die, when I woke up in the hospital morgue, they moved me here, under the house. They've been feeding me through a slot. Please, please, I'm so hungry. I should have noticed the red flags. They were the size of billboards. Danny would never say someone wanted me gone without naming names. Danny would never call it the hospital morgue. He'd say the cooler or the dead people drawer because he had a dark sense of humor. And Danny, real Danny, knew that our basement was half finished and had a dirt floor on the far side. The cold he mentioned, the basement is always cold. That was true. But the rest? No. Still, I turned the knob. The basement stairs groaned like something waking up. I flipped the light switch. Nothing. The bulb had burned out weeks ago, and my dad kept saying he'd replace it. So I used my phone flashlight. The beam bounced down the wooden steps, past the washing machine, past the water heater, past the shelves of canned peaches my mom canned in 2019. And at the bottom, sitting on an overturned bucket, was a shape. It was the size of a man, hunched, wearing a gray hoodie, Danny's favorite, the one with the frayed cuffs. His face was in shadow, but I could see the hands. Long fingers, dirty nails. And when it looked up, I saw 2 points of light where eyes should be. Not glowing exactly, just reflective, like a deer in headlights. Sarah, it said, and the voice was still Danny's, perfect pitch, perfect intonation, right down to the way he drew out the second syllable of my name. Come closer. I can't stand up. My leg's been hurt. That's when I noticed its leg was fine. It was kneeling, deliberately. Everything went quiet. Even the water heater stopped its low rumble. And in that silence, I heard something else, a soft, wet sound, like meat being torn, coming from the thing's direction. It smiled. Danny didn't have a gap between his front teeth. This thing did. And in that gap, wedged like a piece of popcorn, was something dark and fibrous. Hair. Animal hair. Or maybe not animal. Please, it said again. But the please didn't sound like Danny anymore. It sounded like a tape rewinding. Like a voice played backward. I ran. I don't remember climbing the stairs. I don't remember slamming the door. I remember sitting in my car in the driveway with the engine running and the doors locked. Shaking so hard I couldn't put my seatbelt on. My phone said 11:47 p.m. ID only been in the basement for 3 minutes. My parents came home at 12:30. I told them everything. My dad went downstairs with a flashlight and a baseball bat. He came back up 5 minutes later, pale, and said there was nothing there. No bucket, no gray hoodie, just dirt, cobwebs, and a half-eaten rat on the floor. The rat's head was gone. We moved out 2 weeks later. My mom still doesn't know why. I told her the mold was getting bad. But I know the truth. And I know that thing is still down there, underneath someone else's house, waiting for another grieving sister to hear her brother's voice and make the same mistake I almost made. The real Danny is buried in Greenlawn Cemetery. I visit him every month. And every time I lean down to touch his headstone, I whisper the same thing. I'm sorry I almost opened the door. Because whatever was in that basement wasn't Danny. It was something that wore his voice like a stolen coat. And it's still hungry. Story 2. I took the last bus home. I should have waited for morning. The last bus from Millbrook to Kingston leaves at 11:15 p.m. I know this because I've taken it 14 times. 14 Tuesdays in a row, after my night class on 19th century ghost stories. The irony is not lost on me. I walk 4 blocks to the stop outside the old CVS, check my phone battery, and wait for the number 9 to shudder around the corner like an old horse that should have been put down years ago. That night was different because of the fog. Not the pretty kind you see in movies, where it drifts through graveyards and makes everything look romantic. This was the heavy, wet kind that sticks to your skin and tastes like exhaust and river water. The kind that turns streetlights into blurry eggs and makes you realize how blind you really are. I was the only one at the stop. That should have been my first sign. Usually there were at least 2 or 3 others, a woman with a briefcase who worked night shift at the hospital, a guy in a hoodie who never spoke, an old man who smelled like cigarettes and regret. But that night, just me, and a trash can that rattled every time the wind blew, even though there was no wind. The bus arrived at 11:23, 8 minutes late. I didn't think anything of it. The number 9 was never on time. The driver was a woman I'd never seen before, middle-aged, stringy brown hair pulled into a low ponytail. She wore a dark blue uniform that looked too big for her, like she'd borrowed it from someone else. Her name tag was scratched out, just a silver rectangle with no letters. "Kingston?" I asked, holding up my card. She nodded, didn't speak, just jerked her thumb toward the back. I sat near the middle by the window because I like to watch the trees turn into houses turn into nothing. There were 4 other passengers. A young couple in the very back, their heads close together, whispering. A man in a suit near the front, asleep or pretending to be. And a child, a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, sitting alone 3 rows ahead of me, staring out the window. No parents, no guardian, just a kid in a yellow raincoat, even though it wasn't raining. The bus pulled away from the curb, and that's when I noticed the smell. Not the usual bus smell, diesel and old coffee and someone's too strong perfume. This was different, sweet, like flowers left in water too long, like the air in a funeral home. I opened my window a crack. The fog rushed in, cold against my face, and for a second I thought I heard something outside. A voice, a laugh, something that sounded like my name, but wasn't. I closed the window. "Don't look at the windows after the bridge," the little girl said. I turned. She hadn't moved, still facing the window, but her voice was clear and flat, like she was reading from a script. "Sorry," I said. "Don't look at the windows after the bridge. The reflections change." I laughed, a nervous, too loud laugh that echoed off the empty seats. "Okay, thanks for the tip." She didn't respond. The bus passed the old drive-in theater, the one that's been closed since 1997. Then the Tractor Supply store with the faded sign. Then the bridge, the small one over the creek. Not the big bridge, just a concrete arch with graffiti that said "Welcome to Nowhere." After the bridge, the fog got thicker. The streetlights disappeared. We were driving through a stretch of road I didn't recognize, even though I'd made this trip a dozen times. The trees were wrong, too close to the road, their branches scraping the windows like fingernails. The asphalt was wrong, newer, darker, wet with something that wasn't rain. I glanced at the window. The reflection wasn't mine. It was a woman sitting in the same seat, wearing the same jacket with the same phone in her hand. But her face was wrong. Her eyes were too far apart. Her mouth was open too wide. And she was smiling. I looked away fast. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. The young couple in the back had stopped whispering. I turned to check on them, and they were both staring at me. Not whispering anymore, just staring. Their eyes looked wet, shiny, like marbles. The man in the suit was still asleep. Or maybe not asleep. His chest wasn't moving. The little girl in the yellow raincoat was gone. I stood up. The bus kept moving. I walked toward the front, bracing myself on the seatbacks, trying not to look at any of the windows. The driver's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. Her mouth was moving, but no sound came out. She was counting, lips forming numbers. 7, 8, 9. There were only supposed to be 5 passengers. Me, the couple, the suit, the girl. That's 5. But when I reached the front, I saw the seats on the other side, the ones that had been empty when I got on. They weren't empty now. 3 people. No, not people. Things that looked like people. Their skin was the color of old paper. Their clothes were from different decades, a 1980s dress, a 1950s suit, a pair of jeans so faded they might have been from the 90s. They sat perfectly still, hands in their laps, eyes closed. When I walked past, they opened their eyes at the same time. Not at the same time, in unison. And their eyes were the same shade of pale blue, the exact same shade, like someone had copied and pasted them. "Sit down," the driver said. Her voice was normal now, bored even. "We're not at your stop yet." "This isn't the right road," I said. "It's the only road." I looked out the front windshield. The fog was so thick I couldn't see 5 feet ahead. The headlights cut 2 weak tunnels into the white, and at the end of those tunnels, movement. Shapes. Figures standing on the side of the road, watching. Too many to count. The little girl in the yellow raincoat was standing in the middle of the road. The bus didn't slow down. "Stop!" I screamed. The driver kept her hands on the wheel. Her face was perfectly calm. "She's not real," she said. "Not anymore." The bus hit the girl. There was no sound, no thump, no brake squeal. The bus drove through her like she was made of smoke, and for a split second, her face appeared in the window next to me, pressed against the glass, mouth open in a silent scream, eyes black as oil. Then she was gone. I don't remember the rest of the drive. I remember falling into my seat. I remember the couple in the back laughing. A dry, rattling sound, like leaves in a gutter. I remember the man in the suit sitting up, his face slack and gray, and saying she always tries to warn them. It never works. And then the bus stopped. The driver opened the doors. "Kingston," she said. But it wasn't Kingston. It was my street, my house, the same old white colonial with the blue shutters and the dying maple tree. The porch light was on. My roommate's car was in the driveway. I ran off the bus without looking back. I didn't thank the driver. I didn't say goodbye. I just ran up my front steps, fumbled with my keys, and slammed the door behind me. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped my phone twice. My roommate, Jess, was in the kitchen making tea. She looked at me and said, "What happened to you? You look like you saw a ghost." I didn't tell her. I went to my room, locked the door, and sat on my bed until dawn. The next morning, I called the transit authority. I described the bus, the driver, the route. The woman on the phone was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Ma'am, the last bus from Millbrook to Kingston was discontinued in 2019. There is no 11:15 p.m. route." "But I took it," I said. "I have my card. I have the timestamp." She asked me to send her the number on my bus card. I did. She called me back an hour later and said that card hadn't been used in over 4 years, that it belonged to a woman named Margaret Crawley, who died in 2003. The same woman who used to drive the number 9 route until her bus crashed into the creek after the bridge, killing everyone on board, including a 7-year-old girl in a yellow raincoat. I don't take the bus anymore. I drive. Even when my car's in the shop, I walk. I don't care if it's 3 hours. I don't care if it's raining or snowing or 100 degrees. Because here's the thing I can't explain. Sometimes, late at night, I look out my bedroom window, and down on the street, in the fog, I see headlights. I see the shape of a bus, idling quietly. I see figures standing at the stop, waiting. And I see the little girl, in her yellow raincoat, waving at me. Not to come closer, to stay away. I should have waited for morning. You should always wait for morning. The dark belongs to them. Story 3. Something was watching us through the cabin window all night. My wife Mia has this thing she says before every trip. Nothing bad happens in the woods if you don't invite it. She read it somewhere, probably on a Pinterest quote board, and she's been saying it for 7 years every time we pack the car, every time we lock the front door, Every time we drive past the last gas station and head into the mountains. I used to laugh. I don't laugh anymore. The cabin belonged to her uncle, a quiet man named Paul who built it himself in the 80s and then died in it of a heart attack in 2019. Mia inherited it. We had only been there twice before, once for a weekend in the fall, once for a week in the summer. Both times were fine, boring even. The cabin was small, 1 bedroom, a loft, a wood stove, no Wi-Fi, spotty cell service. The kind of place where you bring books and board games and expect to get a lot of sleep. This trip was supposed to be healing. MIA's mom had died 3 months earlier, cancer, fast, ugly, and Mia hadn't been sleeping. She'd wake up at 3 a.m. every night, eyes wide, whispering. I heard her call my name. I never heard anything, but I didn't say that. Grief makes you hear things. Grief makes you see things. Grief is a haunted house you carry inside your chest. So when she said she wanted to go to the cabin for a week, just the 2 of us, no phones, no distractions, I said yes. I packed extra blankets, bought her favorite wine, and told myself this would fix everything. The first night was fine. A little eerie, because the cabin is deep in the woods, a 40-minute drive on a dirt road that turns to mud when it rains. But the stars were beautiful, and Mia laughed for the first time in weeks. We made pasta on the wood stove, drank too much wine, and fell asleep tangled together in the big bed under the quilt her grandmother made. I woke up at 2:47 a.m. The cabin was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silent, the heavy kind, like the air had been replaced with cotton. The fire had died down to embers, and the only light came from the moon through the windows. And that's when I saw them. Eyes outside the window. The cabin has 4 windows in the main room, 2 facing the driveway, 2 facing the woods. The one facing the woods, the big one above the sink, had something pressed against it. Not a face exactly, but 2 eyes, reflecting the moonlight like a deer's, but wrong, too close together, too high up, and utterly still. No blinking, no breathing fog on the glass, just eyes. I didn't scream, I didn't move. My body went cold and hot at the same time, that weird prickle you get when you're being watched, when every instinct tells you to run but your muscles lock up like a deer in headlights. Because that's what I was, a deer. And whatever was outside, it was the headlights. Mia, I whispered. Mia, wake up. She stirred, mumbled something, didn't open her eyes. The eyes blinked, not both at once, one after the other, left, right, like it was tasting the air, or like it was smiling. I grabbed MIA's arm, harder than I meant to, and she sat up fast, gasping. What is it? Don't look at the window, I said. There's something outside. She looked anyway. Of course she looked anyway. And when she saw the eyes, she didn't scream either. She just grabbed my hand so hard her nails dug into my palm. And she whispered, "Don't invite it." "What? Don't I?"